Hi, my name is Mandarin Kim, and this is a video about ancient Egyptian religion. So let's start with the history first of all. The Egyptian civilization really began in about 3100 BCE when Pharaoh Nama united the lands of Upper and Lower Egypt. After a period of about 400 years known as the Early Dynastic Period, the Old Kingdom begins with the Third Dynasty about 2686 BCE, lasting about 600 years. During this period, both the Great Pyramids of Giza and the Great Sphinx were constructed. Ra, Osiris and the rest of the Ennead were the most significant gods of the Old Kingdom. Their worship centred on the city of Heliopolis, located on the edge of what is now Cairo. Then there was a short period known as the First Intermediate Period, during which centralised control broke down and Egypt fractured into smaller states. Beginning around this time, funerary rites and beliefs that were previously reserved for royalty and officials began to trickle down to the common folk also. The Middle Kingdom began in 2134 BCE, which lasted approximately 500 years. The last pharaoh of the Middle Kingdom actually let Semitic people from Canaan settle in Egypt. But how much or how little this actually coincides with the biblical tale of Jacob, Joseph and the others is perhaps the subject for another video. The cult of a god called Amun began to rise in importance during the Middle Kingdom. His cult was centred on Thebes. Then there was a second intermediate period, lasting just over 100 years. During this period, those Semitic Canaanites seized control of Egypt and forced the existing government to retreat to Thebes. They were called the Hyksos. Amun defeated the Hyksos, and so began the New Kingdom in 1549 BCE. The New Kingdom pharaohs were not as insular as before and started to expand their borders into Canaan and Syria. Amun became combined with Ra during the New Kingdom into a deity called Amun-Ra. The pharaoh known as Akhenaten, although he was originally called Amenhotep IV, rejected the majority of Egyptian gods in favour of worshipping the sun disk Atum. This early attempt at monotheism, really, was soon overturned by following pharaohs who reinstated Amun worship alongside all the other gods. Around this time, Egypt also began to lose its hold on Canaan and Syria. Ramesses IX died in 1078 BCE, and following his reign, Egypt split up again into North and South, i.e. Lower Egypt and Upper Egypt. This third intermediate period lasted about 400 years. Following this is the late period of Egyptian history, where although Egyptian society continued as before, they were increasingly ruled over and influenced by foreign cultures such as the Assyrians, the Persians, the Greeks and the Romans. Eventually the spread of Christianity competed with ancient Egyptian religion. When Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire, it spelled doom for the old gods. Christian Emperor Theodosius banned pagan rites and closed temples, after which ancient Egyptian culture went into slow decline. Egyptian religion is based on Ma'at, a principle of truth, justice and order, who was also personified as a goddess. Sustaining the gods in religious ritual was believed to maintain this Ma'at and keep the cosmos in balance and help the cycles of nature to continue. The ancient Egyptians believed that humans had a life force, or Ka, which escaped the body after death, but still needed food to sustain it. They also believed in a Ba, which was unique to the individual, like a soul, but remained attached to the body after death. Egyptian funeral rituals were believed to release the Ba from the body so that it could move freely and join up with the Ka to form the Ak. But they still believed that the Ba returned to the body every night, so it was still important that the body was preserved. Originally, only the pharaoh was believed to even have a Ba, and the afterlife was a bleak affair for everyone else, but this changed over time. By the time of the New Kingdom, there was a fully developed afterlife scenario in ancient Egyptian beliefs, where the soul stood before Osiris and had his or her heart weighed against a feather of Ma'at. If the soul was worthy, then Ba and Ka were joined into an ark. If unworthy, then a monster called Ammit would devour the heart and the soul would be restless forever, which the Egyptians referred to as dying a second time. Ammit was even said to stand by a lake of fire. The parallels between these beliefs and this talk of judgment and a second death with Christian theology are astounding, especially since the New Kingdom predates not only Christianity, not only the earliest evidence we have for the Kingdom of Israel, but even before King David was supposed to have lived. A very important group of deities are those known as the Ennead, which means 9. These are largely cosmological deities, such as Atum-Ra, the sun/creator, Shu, air, Tefnut, moisture, Geb, earth, and Nut, sky. The other 4 were the 4 children of Geb and Nut. These were Osiris, Isis, Nephthys, and Set. Atum and Ra were 2 separate deities originally, but they soon became joined together as Atum-Ra. Atum was a creator god. Ra carried the sun across the sky. The idea that the sun moved across the sky and under the earth every day, and that the earth is flat, seems ludicrous to modern minds. Obviously the Egyptians did not know what we know. But there is more to this than ignorance with superstition. Ra's cycle across the sky and through the underworld was pictured as a birth, death, rebirth kind of thing. Sometimes Ra is depicted as a child in the morning and an old man in the evening. The god Khepri, a scarab beetle, symbolised the sunrise and also symbolised a sort of reincarnation or rebirth. The scarab beetle is a dung beetle after all. It lays its eggs in the waste matter of other creatures, a kind of recycling or rebirth. Also the way it rolls the dung into a ball and rolls it along the ground reminded the ancient Egyptians of the way the sun travels across the sky. Ra grew in complexity over time and was often associated with other gods. Different forms of Ra came to represent different periods of the day. He was associated with Khepri in the morning, with Horus as Re-Herakti in the noon, daytime, and was given a ram's head during the evening and night. There is something elegant about the focus the Egyptians placed on the journey of the sun through the sky, and the death and rebirth symbolised by the sun's journey through the underworld at night and rebirth at sunrise. This rebirth theme also surfaces in the myth of Osiris. Osiris probably represented vegetation, and was the first of many agricultural gods who also symbolised spiritual death and rebirth, via the death and rebirth observable in the seasons of nature. In the myth of Osiris, Osiris is tricked and murdered by his brother Set. In later forms of the myth, his body is also split into 14 pieces and scattered across the earth. Isis then collects the pieces of Osiris, mummifies and then resurrects them. Osiris then becomes a god associated with death and the afterlife. Isis also represents various things: sadness, love, nurturing femininity, lamentation and grief. Set seemed to represent some kind of animal cunning or strength that is very necessary for human survival, but very quickly became a kind of devil figure, an enemy for gods such as Osiris and Horus. Possibly this was originally because of rival cults in rival kingdoms. Nephthys is a more mysterious figure. She is often pictured with Isis by Osiris' side, but was also supposed to be the wife of Set. She also has associations with death and the afterlife. In some accounts Anubis is her offspring with Set. In other accounts Anubis is her offspring with Osiris. Did Set kill him out of jealousy, I wonder? Anyway, associated with the Ennead are a string of other gods. Some of them are offspring of the 4 children of Geb and Nut. Horus is the son of Osiris and Isis, conceived after she had resurrected him. Horus has the head of a hawk and rules the sky. The eye of Horus representing the moon, much as the eye of Ra represents the sun. Horus also seems to be a champion of goodness and honour, as he is often depicted in battle with Set, and it was Horus who finally defeated Set in Egyptian mythology. Anubis was either the son of Nephthys and Set, or Nephthys and Osiris. He was the one who led the soul into the afterlife, and he also governed funerary rites. He has a black jackal's head. There are also the 4 sons of Horus, who are specifically important with regards to mummification, since they govern the jars, the canopic jars, in which specific body organs removed during burial and mummification were kept. Those organs were the stomach, the liver, the intestines, and the lungs. Other gods often appear in the myths of the Ennead, but are not related. Hathor was a goddess of love, fertility, and maternal instincts. She had the head of a cow. Thoth is a god, also featured a lot with the Ennead. He is pictured as either ibis-headed or as a baboon. He was the scribe of the gods, but was more than a mere secretary. He was also associated with the moon, and governed all manner of knowledge, including writing, science, mathematics, and also governs magic and the rhythms and cycles that maintain the cosmos. Without the words of Thoth, it was believed that the gods would never have existed. So this small, quiet, secretary-like god was secretly the power behind the existence of everything. I like that. Away from the central cult of Heliopolis, there were other deities, including some rival creator gods. Amun is the most well-known and important of these. His cult was centered in Thebes, and during the Middle and New Kingdoms he was the god that most of the pharaohs worshipped. He was eventually associated with Ra, probably to make peace between the rival cults, and they became a combined deity, Amun-Ra. Other rival creator gods were Ptah, maybe just pronounce it Tar, who was also a god of craftsmen, and Khnum, who created humanity on a potter's wheel from clay. Khnum had a ram's head. A couple of powerful and influential goddesses were associated with Ptah. Lion-headed Sekhmet and cat-headed Bastet were Ptah's consorts. There were many other fierce, powerful goddesses in ancient Egyptian religion, such as snake-headed Wadjet and scorpion-headed Serket. Why were there so many powerful and sometimes downright scary goddesses in ancient Egypt? Well, Egyptian women were relatively liberated compared with women of other ancient societies. They were essentially viewed as equals to men. In fact, women were especially honoured because of their ability to produce children. The freedoms that Egyptian women enjoyed meant that they were often considered loose by other less egalitarian societies. The importance of childbirth to Egyptian culture is also shown by popular folk devotion to goddesses such as Thoth, who had the head of a hippopotamus, often portrayed as a hippopotamus, who specifically rules over childbirth itself, and the ugly dwarf-like Bes, who, although a protector of the household as a whole, did have a specific role of looking over mothers and children at childbirth. Other interesting Egyptian gods include male fertility god Min, portrayed with an erect penis, and crocodile-headed Sobek, who was god of the Nile. I've been fascinated with the gods and culture of ancient Egypt ever since I was a young teenager, and started reading about ancient Egyptian religion in a big book about world mythology that my parents bought. The hidden depths, the symbolism, the mystery, the veneration of women and of animals, all these things impressed me in a big way. Egypt has part of my soul, if you like. I will always feel drawn to these gods and the powerful ideas that they symbolize. I will always be a fan of ancient Egypt. The Egyptians shaped our modern world. Many of their religious ideas influenced the beliefs of the Jews and the Christians that followed them. Their gods were also borrowed by the ancient Greeks, and what they didn't borrow they were influenced by and associated their own gods with. The influence of Egypt was also felt further south, into Nubia and beyond. Ancient Egypt belongs to everyone. It was one of the foundational societies of our entire world, and its influence spread northwards to Europe, eastwards into the Near and Middle East, and southwards into sub-Saharan Africa. Despite all the changes and developments that have come since, we continue to look at ancient Egypt with wonder and awe, as if we share a subconscious memory of those earliest days of human civilization. Perhaps reincarnation is true after all, huh? So thanks for watching, but I don't really want to rip off Vsauce's ending anymore. I didn't realise I was doing that. I suppose nobody really owns the phrase thanks for watching, but anyway. But I do mean it when I say thanks for watching. And until next time, don't think inside the box. Open your mind, open your eyes, and be free.